When it comes to the challenges or the problems that we see within our world, within our society, there's certainly no shortage of, looking at that and seeing what's going on. But when it comes to solutions, it's a much more difficult conversation. And I know a lot of people often talk about wanting to talk about solutions and look at solutions, and I think it's important that we do that. But as someone who has spent over a decade looking at various different solutions that we have to many of the different problems or different industries that require solutions within our culture, I've always come to wrestle with the same challenges over and over again, which is, does our current culture, does our current worldview and the society that has been built out of that truly make space for solutions that I'm coming across? And the answer is typically no, it doesn't. Like, ultimately, you have to ask the question, can we really fit any of these new ideas or any of these new technologies or different ideas that we're coming across into a system that cannot incentivize them well enough to survive long enough to take hold? Or ultimately, like, our societal infrastructure is too rigid? Is our culture too disconnected to truly make any of these ideas work? Which then begs the question, is there a new way of thinking and being that has to emerge in order for us to begin to see these types of change become possible within our world? And we can see this in literally like every industry that we look at. I mean, it happens here in media. What type of media is more incentivized over others? It's easier to get a lot of attraction to very dramatic, very controversial content, but stuff that's having a grounded conversation gets a fraction of the attention that everything else does. But yet, is it that grounded conversation that is ultimately leading us towards more solutions to a better world? Or is it that highly controversial, highly dramatic conversation that's leading us? I mean, it might be different in different ways, but what we do know is that only one type of conversation is being incentivized and the other one is not. So I've personally always felt that, the answer to these questions is that ultimately, yes, we do need to start to change deeper aspects of who we are, why we think we're here, how we relate to one another. There's got to be new worldviews, new stories that drive the way we create and the way we make decisions and the way we ultimately set up our society. It's a difficult thing to wrap our minds around because it seems like such a big change, but it is something that needs to happen. And I've talked about this for over the last many years with a lot of different people. But in this particular case, I want to draw your attention to a prior conversation I had with Charles Eisenstein about this topic. The clip you're about to see uses the example of religion and mythology to explore how culture and our underlying beliefs ultimately drive our society and how it functions. Check it out. Now, I grew up Catholic, right? Obviously no longer, by the time I was grade 5 or 6, it was kind of starting to not make sense. It kind of really diverged away by the end of high school. But I did tinker, over the later years of my teens and into my early 20s with like Ouija boards and stuff. And then through whether you want to call mystical experiences or meditation or combining that with paranormal experiences, you look at it and you go, okay, similar to what you were saying about how myth can become reality for a subset of people, the Catholic religion believes in the devil and that there's a series of demons that are named, and those demons could potentially take over a particular human, and you could use Catholic rites to remove that demon from that person. And for some people, that absolutely works. And other people who might have observed, like myself, someone who very much appeared to be possessed. I don't know, but it was weird. It involved a demonic roar, as you would call it, that I have no idea where it came from in space, like in space. I had no idea where it came from. I was already well past my Catholic beliefs, but I saw it as, and I saw it as these, when we collectively agree on something enough, for potentially a visual way of putting it, we set up almost like this pocket of potential that is the definition of what it is that we believe. And some of us can plug into that, and that would be part of our experience. And some of us may not plug into that, and therefore it's not part of our experience. Is that kind of like what you're saying?
So the corpus of Catholicism, I mean, this gigantic field of belief, it creates a reality field that you can enter into, and you can accomplish certain things. Like, certain things are real within that reality field.
Yeah.
And it exists beyond people's personal beliefs. Like, you could walk into something like that as an atheist
Yeah.
and walk into an exorcism, and like it's like when you step into a different field, then things change. It's not just up to you. Um, Although you could, like, I could see like a really hardened skeptic carries the field of reductionistic atheism or something with him
Yeah.
and sees that entire exorcism through that lens.
Right.
And what he notices is some sleight of hand trick that the priest is doing. And what he notices is somebody in the closet making a roar, or he suspects that happened, or
Yeah.
says you couldn't disprove that, or like he has a totally different experience of it. So if we accept this, I mean, because this kind of technology that you're talking about, Catholic exorcisms, this is pretty universal among most human cultures. It's not just Catholics. I mean, most cultures around the world, as far as I know, going back into prehistory, believed in this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And still do. Like, it works. It's not like they were so befuddled by their superstitions that they imagined it to work when it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Like this. And in fact, here's the really trippy part. It's not so different from the medical rituals that we're using to combat this evil spirit called COVID, that is invisible to anybody but a priest who has special divinatory equipment to see the spirit and warns you to avoid touching anybody unclean who hasn't donned the appropriate ceremonial garb that prevents the evil spirit from jumping into you. How different is it really from an exorcism?
Yeah.
And there's this complicated ritual, this incredibly complicated ritual that ends up with the injection of a potion into your body in like a mini blood ritual, and the potion has been prayed over by many, many, many highly trained priests in their white jackets, in their ceremonial garb. I mean, this is not actually different in its template from anything else that humans have done. And imagine the power of this reality field, of this belief system, of this mythology to bend reality around it, and to make this contagion look to those in that reality field as a virus. I mean, we narrate it in the conceptual religious terms that are available in this story. And again, it's not just a filtering of information, it's a bending of reality to it. And maybe that's why, in Ivory Coast, it's where a different field is still strong. And many other countries. I've heard similar stories from many places in the third world. Maybe that's why it's not afflicting them so much. So this is, and then maybe, I mean, if you are a member of the particular cult called modernity and science, if you are a member of that cult, and most of us are to some extent, just having grown up here, having been educated here, using concepts like virus, like force, like mass, like all these scientific concepts, like we're immersed in this mythology. Maybe what you need is the rituals of this mythology. What you need is the exorcism that is performed by whatever pharmaceuticals. Like, this is the mythology that we live in. And who am I to come and say your religion is wrong? What I can say, though, is that our religion isn't working very well anymore. It has not brought the benefits, the paradise that it promised. Technology, science, reason, law, markets have not brought the paradise that they promised.
Yeah.
And therefore, we are ready for a new mythology.
Yeah. So for a long time, it has felt like to me that we're in a time of wide-scale change in our world. And the events that are playing out in our world are often acting as an evolutionary pressure to make this change occur within each of us. It not only makes us go, oh my gosh, what's going on out there? It seems so intense. Something is wrong. We need to do something about it. But at the same time, it draws us within and has to ask, why are we doing this? What about us is creating this, right? It's deeper questions. And in some ways that we're in a time, because of everything that's going on, we're in a time between worlds. And that can ultimately feel uncomfortable because we don't know what to do. We don't know what choices to make. We can also expect to feel that there's going to be resistance to different ideas that we have. And at the same time, there's going to be confusion almost everywhere we look, because in some ways we're grasping on to old ideas as they are falling away, and we have no new idea to grasp onto because those new ideas aren't fully formed yet. So as an old one is falling away, we're like, yeah, but what do I grab onto? And can I grab onto something that isn't fully formed if it doesn't fully make sense? Which ultimately leads us to the question, something about grasping onto these new ideas feels right. It feels like there's something there, but can we sit with it long enough to create it and to continue forming these new ideas as they come into being? And when I'm talking about new ideas, I'm talking about anything from, the philosophy behind how we might set up our world, the deeper questions behind how we solve a problem. Can we truly identify what a problem is, or are we just taking the first surface level idea of what we think that problem is and then trying to solve that? How can we truly get to the core of our problems? That's what sitting with it truly leads us towards. Ultimately, I find myself asking the question over and over again, what is the value of a physical solution to the challenges that we face if it's not meant for the type of culture or worldview or set of beliefs that we hold today? Right? Like, for example, when we're talking about energy solutions, would unlimited energy technologies that provide just unlimited energy to people at all times with no cost, right? These technologies that I've explored a lot, I believe exist, but it's a very convoluted conversation to have. Would these technologies really work in a culture where we would likely use these technologies to quickly destroy each other, or perhaps destroy our natural commons even faster than we are today? Or is it that there's something behind, something holding these technologies back, some mysterious force that intelligently is waiting for humanity to find a new way of being within itself? One that can responsibly use these technologies, right? Like, is there something going on behind the scenes? And in this particular case, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this idea of what we're talking about in this video, because we can talk about physical solutions, but there's often something deeper. I hope that's clear. There's something more behind the way we engage as a society that might have to change first. Let me know. What do you think? Is this part of the equation, or no, it's just physical solutions that we need, and once we have them, everything will be okay? Let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, subscribe and share this video with somebody else.